Welcome back to the Complete Story Series. This is the best place to catch up on your favorite comic books with a most dramatic recap. You see, we take your favorite storylines, we break them down into very short videos that are digestible and allow you to understand what happened in the storylines so that you can go buy the next storyline that is currently releasing. Today we're going to be covering Aquaman issues 12 through 15. And if you do enjoy our style of recapping, then show your support by giving us a subscription down below. We're the most epic channel that brings you funny voices, epic music, and sometimes sound effects. Now in our last video for Aquaman, Arthur had been targeted by an attack from a secret organization known as Nemo. Though his first attempt to discredit Arthur was made by Black Manta, Nemo had recruited him to continue keeping pressure on Atlantis. In the end, Black Manta was taken to see the leader of Nemo, who he killed, and then he claimed control over the entire organization. While Arthur continues to maintain his innocence and prove to the world that Atlantis can be a nation to be trusted, Black Manta begins to plan Nemo's next move. Publicly, the world still sees Arthur as a hero, with citizens and fellow Justice League members vouching for him. As the news reports go on, Blackjack asks Manta what are they going to do next, go public? And Manta tells her no. Controlling the world in secret is one of Nemo's greatest weapons. Right now, Atlantis is about to declare war on the United States, and it's going to be a global disaster. Manta then tells Blackjack to ready the Pretender units. This next mission is going to be a false flag operation. Meanwhile, back in Atlantis, Joanna Stubbs tells Arthur that she may have an idea as to who is staging these attacks. After joining the Royal Navy, her father came to her and tried to recruit her for something called Nemo. She goes on saying how her father explained that they have their roots worldwide and that they were the ones who staged the attack, framing Atlantis as the aggressors. The next morning, the news stations across the nation began to report that there had been large-scale attacks against several East Coast locations. It seems that Atlantis has launched an unprovoked military assault on the United States. Meanwhile in Atlantis, Arthur watches as the video feeds show Atlantean soldiers announcing, in the name of Atlantis, the deluge sweeps you away. As the attacks on the coast continue, President Obama makes an announcement to the American people that they are currently under assault by the Atlantean nation. As of now, their military forces have been mobilized, and with great regret, he must say that now, they are currently at war with Atlantis. Arthur watches the news and he turns back asking his council, one question, is that actually us? The three military commanders all say that their units are all here and accounted for, so Arthur tells them, get our military readied. We are not fighting in a war, we are defending against it. Cachardor then says that there's an incoming message from Captain Orcos. Orcos says that the scans show a warship holding position 200 miles east of New York. The sensors show that the ship is the Megalodon, a Sea Fury class war merciful destroyer. Cachardor mentions that the ship disappeared 35 years ago, and Arthur says, well, it seems like someone recovered it and they're now using it to stage a war in the name of Atlantis. Orcos says that if the command is given, he will be within firing range of the Megalodon within 13 minutes. But before Arthur can answer, Orcos shouts that they've been pinged by the American warships. They're planning on attacking. Arthur watches as an explosion goes off in the video feed, and then silence. He turns back to his council and he tells them to mobilize the defense fleet. We are to defend our territory only attacking if we are attacked first. Tula then tells the council that they heard their king. Move out! Kai calls Arthur over before leaving and he tells him that he's been trying to make contact with the United States in order to cease fire, but they are ignoring Atlantis. Arthur tells him to just keep trying, and meanwhile, over at the White House, the Chief of Staff, Gantry, is told by Admiral Mettinghouse that their preparations are complete. He would like to introduce them to the team that will be infiltrating the Atlantean territory. Gantry then asks what exactly are these people supposed to do, and Mettinghouse takes a gun from one of the guards and fires it at one of his soldiers. The female soldier, Rhonda, takes out her hand, catching the bullet, and tells Gantry that they should see their combat form if he thought that was cool. Later back in Atlantis, Arthur and Mara sit with Joanna, trying to see if there is any more information regarding her father or Nemo. She tells them that she wasn't aware of any tech that can manipulate water, but her father said that Nemo had a functional control over the seas. Arthur says that he's going to catch one of those pretender agents then, and find out exactly what Nemo is capable of. But as he leaves, Mara stops him, telling him that with everything going on, she can no longer be a part of this. Do not ask for her assistance. Arthur tries to stop and understand, but before he can even ask what's going on, Mara quickly swims off. Back on the surface, the pretend attackers begin to get more aggressive, and all the while, Black Manta watches, and he smiles. Manta asks if anyone's been captured yet, and Blackjack says no. So he pushes a button and tells her that that's good, because they know what would happen if someone were to get captured. Back in Atlantis, Tula begins to finish her preparations for her defenses when there's a sudden voice calling out to Arthur. He looks up to see Clark and the rest of the league, and Clark tells him, we gave you a chance, Arthur. As the League stands there, Arthur tells them, if you're here to help, then help. Atlantis is not at war with the surface, but someone is making it look like we are. Clark asks him if he's really sticking to that story, and Arthur tells him it's Nemo. They have massive resources and they are old. They're an invisible world power. Batman asks if he has any evidence, and Arthur responds with, what? Is it because my word isn't good enough? I completely trust you, but you could have been misled. I do have evidence, but I need a negotiator for the White House. The room falls silent, and after sighing, Clark tells him, show me what you have. Meanwhile, back at Commander Stubbs' sub, Control advises that they have an Atlantean war mercible closing in on their location. Stubbs gives the order to prime the railgun. The Atlanteans are about to have a rude awakening when they see Nemo's weapon tech. Over at Chichardar's ship, Chichardar asks Tula if they can engage. The US ships are crossing into their territory. Tula tells her to stand down, but suddenly a beam shoots through the warship. Elsewhere, Mara sits in her room asking Mother Kita if this is what they prophesized about. Kita says that the widowhood has warned her, and she laughed. Now she believes them that Arthur will fall and Mara will bring the destruction of Atlantis. Mara says that the prophecy said the king would fall and the queen would become the world's end harbinger. But Arthur lives and they are yet to be married, so she really can't do that. Sita stops her, telling her that she has bonded with the king as if she would be his queen. The only choice here is to do nothing. Mara shouts that she wants to help Arthur. Their world will be dying. And Sita stops her again, telling her that the king does not need the fatal queen. For their sake, she must be absent. Meanwhile, back at the control room, Batman reads over the data collected by Roa. He says that it's all very compelling. It shows how Atlantean weapons and hardware have been procured to give authenticity to the imposters. Great detective work. Arthur tells Roa that that's going to be the greatest compliment that she will ever receive. Clark steps in, telling him that that data is going to help, but it does not show them who Nemo is or where they are. Arthur tells him it's still a work in progress, but as the two of them go on, Tula rushes in, advising that they are currently under attack. Chichardar's ship is down. Arthur shouts for Clark to go. He needs to protect his city. And out in the city, the buildings begin to fall as Stubbs continues his attack. Arthur shoots through the waters to Stubbs' sub, and he begins to rip his way into it. As the waters begin to flood, Arthur grabs a hold of Stubbs, telling him, Nemo's about to tell the truth to the world once I'm done with you. Stubbs laughs, telling him, you've never really grasped what's at stake here, huh? Back at the Nemo command, Blackjack says that their objective is complete. There is significant damage to Atlantis, but Stubbs and his crew have been taken alive. Manta holds up a button and he presses it, and a sound begins to pulse into Stubbs' brain, and suddenly his head is torn apart by Coral. Over at the White House, Meddinghouse tells Gantry that it's nice that the Justice League brought some data to try and help Atlantis, but they could easily be defending another of their members. Gantry tells him fine, go ahead and do it, and elsewhere, Rhonda tells the squad that they've just received their orders. They are going in for the kill. Seconds later, all 6 Aquamarines shoot out of the water, all transformed into their battle armor sea creature modes. Rhonda tells everyone that it's time to go kill a king. Back in Atlantis, Joanna looks over the dead bodies recovered from the recent attack, and she recognizes the commander, Mike Stubbs. Her father, the one who tried to recruit her. Roa says as far as they can tell, the radio pulse triggered pellets of a fast-growing coral that has been surgically implanted into their brains. As you can see, the results are catastrophic. Arthur tells her to continue with her analysis. For now, he's going to make sure that everything else is okay. A short while later, Arthur heads over to the council room to advise that they are continuing to not attack the American troops. Neil tells him that there is no appeasement. America will continue their assault and never show kinship towards them. Koa says that's right. What they need right now is a strong leader but Arthur stops and asks, do you question my ability as king? Neil tries to tell him that's not what he meant, but then his words trail off as he looks into the distance. Suddenly, gunfire shoots into a crowd and the Aquamarines begin to swim in. Kai tells Arthur to hurry up and leave, and as he does, he's shot in the back. After taking out the rest of the council, Rhonda tells everyone to spread out and search. One of the Aquamarines begins to swim off, and Arthur crashes into the wall, punching him down. He then rockets himself towards the others, but the Octopus Marine grabs him by the neck. Rhonda swims in, grabbing Arthur, shouting for him to go for the kill shot. But before they can, a giant watery shot is punching them away. With the watery arm, Mara rises and begins to take down the other Marines. Arthur struggles with Rhonda, telling Mara that he has their leader. Rhonda begins to pull away, slashing at Arthur's face, and just as she goes down to bite him, Arthur punches her back, pushing her away. Suddenly, a giant sea creature opens its mouth to bite down on Rhonda, but instead Arthur tells it to not eat her. He then punches Rhonda, knocking her out, telling her that there will be no more death today. A little while later, as Arthur recovers, Mara says that Neol and Ko have been slain from that last attack. Kai is also injured and is currently in critical state. But while thinking back on it, Arthur asks Bice when he brought the sea monster with him. He was using a staff to control it. Bice tells him that's right. It's just a sore rider's mind goad to keep them in check. Arthur looks at the Mind Goad, stating that it has a short-range aqua telepathis blast, an artificial version of his power. But the pulse it gave is like the one that he felt when Joanna's father was killed. Roa steps in, stating that Nemo can duplicate their Atlantean gifts. She should be able to track where that signal originated from. As Roa leaves, Arthur sits down on his throne and he makes a broadcast to everyone of Atlantis. He tells them that what they are hearing is true. The Americans tried to assassinate him in the palace. He knows many Atlanteans want vengeance, but that isn't what they need. With his last words, the great Koa, Elder of Law, says that he feared that their king may not be strong enough to lead. So with that, there will be one last effort to halt the war with the surface, and if he shall fail, he will accept the idea that peace is foolish and he will step away from the throne. As the broadcast ends, Mera asks if he's serious and Arthur tells her, "Never more serious. Well, maybe when I asked you to marry me." Mera says they need to talk. It's about the widowhood and what they prophesized. But before Arthur can ask, Roa returns with the data, and Arthur just tells Mera that he loves her. After reading the location, Arthur shoots out of Atlantis, and a short while later he reaches Panta da Alta, the Azores. The doors to the Manta's ship burst open as Arthur flies in and he sees Black Manta and he says, "This all makes a whole lot more sense now." Blackjack shouts back, "How did you find us?" But without saying a word, Arthur begins to attack everyone. Manta fights back, saying, "Us meeting like this, it all goes back around, but this time." Arthur punches him away, telling him, "I no longer have an interest in talking." He turns back, tearing through Blackjack and the other guards, and just as he gains an upper hand, Manta jumps from behind, choking Arthur. As the two of them begin to struggle, Arthur manages to elbow Manta and kick him away. Manta then blasts him with his helmet, and Arthur throws his trident into Manta's shoulder, tackling him through the ship's walls. The two go back and forth, punching each other, and through their punches, Arthur grabs Manta, telling him, "You have no one to blame but yourself." Manta pulls out a device telling him, "It's going to be a hell of a place for both of us," and he presses the button. The entire ship explodes, and through the flames of the burning ship, Arthur rises alive. A short while later, Arthur gives his statement stating that the Atlantean special forces are combing through the wreckage searching for Manta's body. But as of now, Nemo is disabled. The war between Atlantis and America is done because the true aggressor has left the field. Arthur then drops Manta's broken helmet on the desk, telling them that he thought that they should meet face to face and point out that if he wanted him dead, he would be so 5 minutes ago. Gantry shouts, "Mr. Curry!" But Arthur tells him, "I am not addressing you. If you want to speak to me, do so with respect by stating your majesty." Arthur goes back to President Obama, telling him, "Once again, if I really wanted you dead, it would have been done. But that is not who I or Atlantis are." President Obama asks, "Are you finished, Your Majesty?" Arthur continues telling him, "What happened were the actions of a third party, and I am here to tell you that I will be the loser here. Atlantis loses right now." And so a public statement is then broadcast around the world as President Obama announces the war between Atlantis and the United States has ended. It is evident that a third party played a role in engineering the conflict. Mera watches and tells Sita that it's over, but Sita says yes, stability is restored, but for how long? Meanwhile, back on the coasts of Azores, through the wreckage of their ship, Blackjack crawls her way to the shore. If you didn't think Aquaman was cool, this pretty much should show you that. I mean, Jason Momoa does an amazing job of looking really intimidating, but this Aquaman, he will rip your head off. This guy is incredible, and I love this story. I love what they're doing with this, and I love the idea of Atlantis fighting against the US or any power in the world. Anyway, if you want to keep up to date on this stuff, go ahead and subscribe, because we do these dramatic readings for the comic books just about every day for you. And don't forget, you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Comicstorian. I'll see you guys next time right here.